Hello and welcome to Take a Look. I'm Lydia Hilton with LCTV 66. Today I'm here with Mark Littman, Director of States of Grace. He's here for the on-screen and in-person series at the Ware Center. So Mark, can you tell me a little bit about States of Grace?
Sure. Well, I made the film with my wife, Helen Cohen, and it took us about 5.5 years to make the film. Mm-hmm. It's actually about an old friend of Helen's named Grace Damman. That's where the film's title comes from. Grace was in a head-on collision on the Golden Gate Bridge in 2008 and just barely survived the accident. People didn't expect that she would even make it through the first night.
Oh, yeah.
She was in a coma for 48 days and broke 17 bones in her body and just had massive internal injuries. And she spent 13 months in rehab hospitals, and we followed her for 4 years after she came home to the Buddhist community that she had lived in.
Wow, yeah, and what was that recovery process like, especially, having her be a friend and stuff and seeing, a friend go through that? What was that like for you?
Well, I think it was much harder for Helen. She and Grace had known each other for about 20 years at the time of the accident. I had only met Grace a couple of times prior to that. But we were actually on our honeymoon in Italy when the accident happened, and it really, it was really shook us both up. And when we came home, Grace was in a coma. It was unclear whether she was going to come out of the coma, what kind of condition she would be in. So it was, a very, very fraught time. She was as I said, she was in rehab hospitals for 13 months and got enough better that she was able to come home. The key thing in coming home was the ability to have one person be able to transfer her, to move her like from a wheelchair to a bed or that kind of thing. When she was able to do that, they released her home, but she was still massively impaired and needed 24/7 care. Yeah. So we followed her through 2 surgeries to try in her attempt to gain greater mobility, and it was a very emotional film to make. There were very difficult times when she was feeling a lot of despair around her condition. She's very funny, and her partner Fu is very funny. Her partner is a Buddhist priest. They live in a Buddhist community.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Grace is also a physician, and she founded the first AIDS clinic at Laguna Honda Hospital in 1990 rather.
Oh, okay.
So she had, a very significant medical background herself, also a great sense of humor. So it was actually very inspiring being around her, as well as very challenging at times.
Yeah, and it's my understanding you said that she's a physician, and she did a lot of work with the HIV and AIDS community. Right. What sort of work was she doing? I know she had a great impact. She was recognized by the Dalai Lama. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. There's an award ceremony every 4 years in the Bay Area called Unsung Heroes of Compassion. And Grace received that award about 4 years. It happens every 4 years, and she received it, I think, in 2004 for her work with AIDS patients. She created this clinic for people with HIV and AIDS and signed over 1,000 death certificates over the years that she ran it.
So after the accident, how did she cope with, not being able to work in the same way that she was able to before, and working so closely with that community? Was that, difficult for her? How did she take that?
Well, she was always incredibly active. She was always had something going on. She was always in motion.
Yeah. And
so it was incredibly challenging for her not to be in motion. She was very immobilized by this accident. But she was always, even within the constraints of her, impaired body, she kept herself very busy. She did a lot of brain exercises to help her cognitive abilities. She would do lots of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. There were always people coming in and out to do different kinds of activities with her. So I think it was very difficult, challenging for her not to be taking care of patients,
Yes.
because that's really
Yeah.
was her life's blood in a lot of ways. But she found, I mean, she was very determined to heal herself and, put all of her energy into that.
Wow, yeah. And so she really kind of made this transition from being a caregiver as a physician and kind of becoming the care receiver. And especially, with her partner, Fu, being that caregiver to her. How did that dynamic kind of change their relationship of family in general, and just, also Grace's idea of, life itself, because obviously this is such a life-changing experience. Yeah.
Well, it changed all the relationships within the family. Fu is a Buddhist priest. She's not naturally a caregiver. And it was, when the accident happened, it was a big moment for Fu to decide what she was going to be doing, what she was capable of doing. Because at that point, they weren't intimate partners either. So they weren't a married couple. And there wasn't this sort of structure or even feeling of obligation necessarily.
Wow.
So it was really her choice of how she was going to participate in this. And after a lot of soul searching, she decided that she would take care of Grace, or could take care of Grace, for 5 years. And that was at a point where it wasn't clear whether Grace was going to come out of the coma or what kind of mental or physical capability she would have if she did come out of it. So it was a big deal to take this on. For Grace to become the care receiver was challenging as well, because she's so used to being a caregiver. And I think it was very hard for her in that position. She was always thanking people for everything that they did for her, and that was about what she could give, was that gratitude. So at the same time, even there were times when she was in the rehab hospital and there would be a new stroke patient who would come in, and she would counsel them. Because so she was always, from whatever position she was in through this, she was always trying to be of support to other people. There was a time when shortly after she came out of the coma, where her roommate had a heart attack, and she started to run a code blue, which is, where a physician actually guides staff in what to do to take care of the patient. And she had to be reminded that she was the patient there and not the doctor.
Wow.
by the staff. But her first impulse is to be doing as much as she can to help other people.
Yeah, wow. And, obviously being so close to Buddhism, how did that spirituality play a role in both, her recovery and just, her outlook on her new life?
Well, she says in the film that she thinks she would have died without her Buddhist practice.
Wow.
And I think it figured in a number of ways. She's a very experienced meditator, and meditation often brings a lot of pain and discomfort with it, and she had learned how to manage pain through that experience. Buddhist philosophy talks a lot about the transience of everything, that conditions change constantly, and she deeply believes that. So even when she was experiencing a lot of pain and whatever she was experiencing, she, I think, knew intellectually and knew on a very deep level that it was going to pass. So she was able not attach to the pain and turn it into a real suffering.
Wow, yeah, no, that's amazing. That's a great story. And so what would you say, this is an incredible story, so what was the most challenging aspect of her story to capture on film?
I think the hardest thing for both Helen and me was watching Grace go through the really difficult times.
Yeah.
There's a scene in the movie where it happens behind a curtain. It's the bathroom is in back of the curtain. we were doing an interview with Fu. We knew that things were not well at that moment.
Yeah.
And Grace asked Fu to help her go to the bathroom. And so we took Grace's mic off, and Fu still had her mic on. And Grace is just in a very bad place at that moment, and actually talks about wanting to commit suicide.
Wow.
And wanting people to know that, you know, if things don't improve for her, that life would not be worth living. And it was very challenging to be around that level of despair.
Yeah.
But again, it was something that she moved through fairly quickly. And if we had taken a cue from Grace, we would have not been as impacted by that as we were, I think.
Yeah. And so I guess, you know, to conclude this, what does this film mean to you? You know, now you've finished it and you've, you know, captured this, you know, great story. Yeah, what does it mean to you?
Well, it's interesting. People take a lot of different things from it. I didn't go, neither Helen nor I went into this with a particular agenda. We just believe that Grace, being the remarkable person that she is, with the background that she has, that she was going to navigate this whole experience in a really unusual and interesting and hopefully useful way for other people. So, and that was the case, and people have taken a lot of different things from it.
Yeah.
For me personally, I think it's given me just greater appreciation of being alive and being able to do all the things that I do in my life, and just be more grateful.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for talking with us and sharing this incredible story. And I'm Lydia, and this is Take a Look on LCTV 66.
I made a decision to be of service to people, and I gave it my all.
We are so pleased to honor Grace Deman for her pioneering work caring for individuals living with and dying from AIDS. Thank you, Grace.
It's happened again. Another head-on crash on the Golden Gate Bridge. It was a massive collision with devastating consequences.
The 60-year-old woman driving suffered major injuries and may not make it.
I get a phone call that there's been an accident. I mean, this one was like an atomic bomb. There was no way that anyone thought she would survive the accident.
Dieter, it's Fu calling. Grace is awake. Really awake. She's talking, she's asking questions, she wants to know what happened to her. I'm serious, it's just a miracle.
Take a longer step with the left.
This leg forward.
As a physician, I was a caregiver all my life.
Hey!
It's a real eye-opener to be on the other side of the caretaker-caregiver divide.
She needed an ICU, and then she needed a rehab facility, and then they sent her home. And where's the doctor? Where's the expert? Where's the nursing staff? It's like, well, actually, you're it, Fu. Piece of cake. Thanks, Fu.
I feel like I've lost a best friend.
Who was your best friend that you lost?
My
You said
body.
Yeah.
My body. I don't want to be this dependent so that I don't feel like a burden. Do you get it?
The burden. The burden isn't your business.
I do not want to go on living if I continue to be this disabled. Period, the end.
I think I would have died early on if it weren't for my Zen practice. I learned that nothing lasts forever, including great pain, great sorrow, great helplessness. nothing lasts forever. Who am I really now? Who do I want to be now?
Wow, isn't that glorious?
We'll see.